I assemble the smartest people I can think of or reach out to carry that conversation, and that's exactly what I've done today.
Please give my panel a round of applause. Welcome.
Okay, what's up, guys? Jay Martin here, investor and CEO of Cambridge House, and I'm joined right now by Michael Kosowan, the president and CEO of Torq Resources. Michael, how are you?
I'm doing great, Jay. It's great to be on your show, and I'm glad that you've got this renewed interest in our company because there's a lot of things coming up.
100%. And I want to dive into those. I've got a web of directions. I want to take this conversation today, get my audience more familiar with Torq and get them more familiar with you because this is kind of fun. I haven't had you on the show before, but I know a lot about your background because of your tenure at Sprott. I mean, Rick Rule was one of the first real mentors I had in this business. And I know you've worked incredibly close with him for a long time. So before we jump into Torq, could you just give my audience who's not familiar with you a quick 30-second overview of your background?
Sure, happy to. Well, we share something in common. I mean, Rick Rule was my mentor as well, and I ended up working in the brokerage firm for him in Southern California. I liked it so much I stayed for 15 years. It wasn't just the weather, it was great mentorship, as you mentioned, and really getting that insight into the natural resource space and how we place investors into this area so that they can really profit and benefit from their investments. And I think that was a big part of it. We grew as a firm, and eventually we were acquired by Sprott, which is a brand name certainly up here in Canada with regards to being in the gold space and now the uranium space. But in natural resources in general. And when we were acquired, I took that as an opportunity to move up to Toronto and get closer to Eric Sprott's methodologies as far as what he was looking into and what kind of investments he had for consideration. And so I think between those two gentlemen who are really, icons in the natural resource space, I developed a really good background. And I also ended up investing and learning about a lot of other companies. And two of those gentlemen are both Sean Wallace, who's the executive chair of Torq currently, and also Ivan Bebek, who is working with both Fury and Tier 1 Silver currently. So it was a really good sort of grouping that we had. And then I eventually moved on, crossed the street, as you will, and became CEO of Torq Resources.
Yeah, and my audience is familiar with both Tier 1 and Fury, and Sean and Ivan. I've had them both on the show, both companies, both individuals. I'm not shy about it. I'm very bullish on Ivan Bebek and tend to invest in all of his deals. I want to back up a minute. So, what an opportunity. Can you share any key lessons or takeaways from your experience with Eric Sprott, Michael?
Yeah, I think if we look at the gold space, the silver space, let's say the precious metals right now, and you're looking at precious metals stocks in general, they certainly haven't had a very good time of late. In fact, if these used to be stocks where you had to be, let's say, commodity sensitive or a gold bug or some other such thing. But the valuation that you're seeing in these large cap stocks now, basically they're at a third of the valuation when you contrast them to the S&P 500 stock. So a third of the PE ratio, a third of the price to book type ratio. So you don't need to be commodity centric any longer. You can be a fundamentalist and start to give these stocks and this sector a really good look into. Meanwhile, you've got an area such as copper that's really developing with the electrification of everything, the extension of renewables, electric vehicles. Those types of elements are really on people's mind, the reflationary trade in general. And the demand for copper that we see going forward really puts, I think, the copper space as well in a really ideal position. And I want to touch on something else, not to drag out the macro too much, but we pay attention to a lot of the other senior companies and what they're doing. We see them as potential clients or hopeful clients down the road. And, Newmont has stated just a day ago that they really see themselves opening their aspect into the copper space. Now, I think that's organic, that's going to happen, but I think it also speaks to a couple of things. One, I believe that they see this copper trade really starting to develop for the reasons I just mentioned. But two, as a 6 million ounce gold producer per annum, That's without any real significant increasing grades to existing deposits or expansion of exploration projects, meaning that they're going to have to mine more tons. As you mine more tons, it's nice to get a byproduct that really complements your gold flow. And, mineralogy being the way it is, copper golds are common systems or more common than many others as far as, those commodities are concerned. And you're getting that development where they want to maintain this gold, their stance on gold, but they're also looking at the opportunities in copper and also a way to ameliorate their costs on the gold side.
Interesting. I'm going to watch out for that. One of the biggest questions on my channel is how are we going to meet the copper demand, right? And there's, looking at copper exploration companies, I think you have to be really careful if you're a gold investor because the exit strategy is just different, right? If you're looking at developed gold exploration project, late stage exploration, the paths forward for that company are very numerous in terms of the number of people that you could consider a suitor that might acquire you, or you could raise the cash and take the project to production on your own. But in the copper sector, there's maybe 5 or 6 companies that have the treasuries to acquire you and build that mine, and raising the money yourself usually isn't an opportunity or an option for you just because of the scale.
Well, exactly. And to interject, Jay, I think that's really the point. I think the Newmonts, the Barricks of the world are starting to take a chapter out of the BHPs and the Rio Tintos and sort of how do we continue to grow our business? And this is a way to do it. So with a company like ours, and where we're looking for these copper gold types of deposits that are significant in size and things that we're going to be able to sell to a major in a very stable jurisdiction, then I think that all of a sudden our audience has increased significantly. It's not just the household copper names anymore. It's actually the major mining companies as well. And I believe as you see these groups start to collaborate together, the Teck and Newmont group, for instance, collaborating in particular in Chile and others, you're starting to see the fact that they see this expansion and how do they keep this pace up, given the lack of exploration that's really occurred in our industry.
Yeah, 100%. Now let's talk about Torq. So, first of all, the people are what turned my head, right? I'm always paying attention to what this team is up to. And so that's number one. You guys are a copper gold company based in Chile, a proven jurisdiction, and we've got 2 main assets. So, do you want to start with Margarita or Andrea? I guess what gets you more excited right now of the 2 projects, Michael?
Well, they both do. It's an unfair question. I'm not going to give you the trite answer of it's like picking your favorite child, but I would say, I'll group them together for you for a second, Jay, and just let me describe them this way. The reason I like them is the geological controls that are associated to both projects are such that it will allow for efficient exploration. And what I mean by that is we're going to be able to hit them with the drill bit imminently, and it's going to tell us in a very binary sense what we need to do next, whether we need to continue aggressive or whether we need to do something else. And I think that's, instead of dragging projects along, we're really looking for solutions. We're really looking for answers on these projects soon. And so I think that's a big part of what they deliver and have the capability to. The second thing, I'm grouping both of these projects together here for a moment, is the idea of paradigm. So both projects have been looked at in a certain way. It's sort of like we've all been looking in one direction on these projects. And while there's certainly mineralization in the area, it really hasn't been expanded upon for what exists in looking at different types of geological concepts and different types of geological models. So to my mind, with that change in paradigm, they're new. They're new projects in the sense that they can present real new discoveries and really show this aha moment when we start to develop them with the exploration bit. So grouping them together, that's what I like about both of them. And they're tight packages in the sense that they're gonna give us that answer, and it's gonna give us the green light or the red light in the context of what we do next with those properties.
Okay.
As far as which one, they have technical differences, which I won't delve too much into, but I would say in the case of Margarita, The hurdle rate is lower because of the fact that it's got this great access to it. I think a mid-tier to a smaller company could be interested in it as a default. I mean, our goal is really to look for the big prize, and we believe that that's there in both of these projects. So they're great starters for us in our foray into Chile. But the third thing that I think is really important, again, keeping this idea of both of them, why are they significant? It really has to do with the fact that it's substantiated Torq Resources in Chile. We have the A team as far as Chilean exploration group. We have the same team that made the El Moro discovery, which I like to kid is so big it's currently being mined by two companies, Teck and Newmont. But that's really more of a joke. But they could easily, one major could handle it quite readily. Having said that, I think that this team has shown the fact that they know how to think big. They know what the appetite is for a major company. And we are now established ourselves in country to the extent that we're seeing this addition of projects come in our door as we've substantiated ourselves there. So that's a long way of saying we've kind of broken the ice, if you will, as far as being a concern or an exploration concern in that country. Yeah. And that to us was really, really important. We like to brag about our past successes at times. Those were typically in different jurisdictions. This is a new ball game. This is a new ballpark that we're in called Chile. And I'm really proud of the team that we're able to deliver through Torq.
Okay. Now, in terms of Newsflow, correct me if I'm wrong, but we're going to hear something from Margarita first. Is that correct?
Absolutely. We promised we would be drilling Margarita in Q3.
Right.
There are 4 business days left in Q3.
So what can we expect, Michael?
You can expect something next week.
I love that. All right. So,
but the other thing is on Andrea, we're finishing up a lot of review and news flow that we have internally as far as the technicals. That doesn't tend to, shift the meter, but it's very important for our technical team to get the targeting done right. So we are proceeding with, very efficient targeting and very, very successful potential for this deposit. And we'll be drilling that in Q1.
Okay. And for the benefit of my audience, is that something you're going to have to go to the market for cash? Talk to me about your treasury.
No. Short answer is no. We have a budget in place for both of these projects. So they're about 2.2 million each, actually. And as of the end of last quarter, we were around about $6 million. So we're okay in that respects. Our eyes are bigger than our stomachs in the sense that we are continuing to look for these bigger prizes that are out there. And as I alluded to earlier, now that we've got the network, the capabilities, and the substantial team in place to really evaluate these additional opportunities, I think that we're going to be on the hunt, and you're going to be hearing much more from us in a corporate sense as well.
Okay. Now, today is September 24th. For context, depending on when you're watching this, the news Michael just referenced might come out today, might come out tomorrow, might have come out yesterday. One of the first questions my audience is going to have is, what can you say about scale at this point, Michael? One of the first questions my audience will have about a copper project.
If you look at our previous entities, we were able to basically look at an audience that wanted to mine them, and they were larger scale companies. So we're very, very cognizant of that. We've been very picky with Torq in the sense that we've been judicious at what type of projects that we want to take on. So they do have to meet that threshold. But to try to answer your question in a technical sense, which is where I think you're going, I mean, our goal at a Margarita is 500 million tons of the right type of material. You can live on less if your grade blesses you, but you can never count on that. But I think the idea is that what we're targeting at Margarita is the sulfides, which show the ability to have both the higher grade and certainly the higher tonnage. So that's in the back of our mind what we're aiming for.
Okay.
And Margarita in particular. The particulars at Andrea, we haven't completely fashioned those out. We are still at the targeting stage with that prospect. But again, in order to entice a major, which is what we want to do, we're going to have to look at that hundreds of millions of ton category there as well.
Yeah, 100%. Okay. So Margarita news any minute. Andrea, we're going to be drilling in Q1. What else can you share about potential trigger points, Michael? I guess what I'm curious about is I'm sure you're looking at tons of deals, tons of opportunities and projects. Are you actively pursuing another acquisition? Are you hyper-focused on the two projects you have? Is there anything in the periphery that our audience should know about?
Well, we're spending a lot of time and energy on the corporate side as well. And we have been, I think, more well recognized in country. And the types of opportunities that are coming our way are good and great in scope and potential. So I believe our shareholders are going to be quite, happy with what we've been working on here in the context of trying to continue to develop that potential on their behalf, really. And I think another thing is, given the set of circumstances that we've been in, Chile has kind of always been a tough nut to crack in the sense that a lot of the land was always tied up by high net worth individuals, wealthy families. What we're seeing now is really a real opening of a real openness that we hadn't previously experienced. So we're seeing bigger and better projects, I think, as an extension of what's been happening in the world around us here recently. And the idea that some of these patriarchs of these families are now in their 80th year, and they're having a brush with their own mortality means that they want to start to get things on the roll finally with regards to the properties that they may have been holding for decades. And that is, I think that's a change that's happened recently because of the sign of the times that we're going through right now.
Interesting. Okay. No, final question. I always need to ask on behalf of my audience because I tell them it's one of the most important things is management ownership. And I know you guys have a great track record of eating your own cooking, so to speak. That's why you're on the show. But what can you share in that regard right now, Michael?
Well, recalling back to Rick Rule, I think it was the second line, that buzz line that I ever heard from Rick Rule, which is, you have to learn to eat your own cooking and, make sure that it's good. And I believe that we've done that here. On the management side, we control about 25% of the stock. So a very large stake. We participate in the financing. You can look at my filings. I buy in the open market when I think something's been overdone or doesn't make sense to me, meaning that it gets too cheap. And I think that there are others in our management and our board that are happy to do that as well. And we'll continue to do that. So we are big backers of ourselves. And I think that also speaks to the idea that that's why we target a sale to a major company. I mean, if you want to believe on self-interest and greed, if that's what you think of some management teams, I mean, that is our only exit strategy realistically. So we have to, everything we do has to drive us to that end. Otherwise, if I sold 2 shares, it would be all over the bull boards, up and down as far as, it's all over, or, there's some massive selling that's going on, which of course it wouldn't be true. So we're really driving towards that end of getting acquired by a major company for the right kind of exit for all concerned. But the other point I'd like to make is that I would say we've got a very loyal shareholder base that I'm really happy to have aboard with us. They've been patient. We're looking to reward their patience. The last financing we did with this company was 4.5 years ago at 65 cents with no warrant. Given the current market conditions, we're in and around that same price on low volume. And I think that we've stewarded their money well, and we're now at the point where, it's showtime. The curtain is about to raise here, and things are going to start happening as far as the show. And I think that that's a big element for new investors to certainly look at. But our base is quite solid. Like I said, the volumes haven't been that bad on the exit side. And I would say that we're looking to reward that patience and that loyalty amongst our shareholder group. As I alluded to earlier, we did have this past success stories, and I believe that those individuals, those close associates to us, are willing to, they know our MO and they're willing to see how this all ends.
I love that. Okay, that's a good place for us to wrap it up. For anybody, I encourage you to take a look on the Venture TORQ and on the OTC TRBMF. Michael, it was great having you on and getting you in front of my audience. Thanks so much for making the time.
Thanks, Jay. It's been fun, and look forward to talking more with you.
Okay, guys, 3 last things. First, if you enjoy my interviews and would like a bit more, you can subscribe to my Friday newsletter. It's free, and the comment to subscribe is right beneath this video in that pinned comment. In this newsletter, I share my key lessons learned, takeaways, and any actions that I might be taking in the market as a consequence of what I've learned on the show. Second, when I started a YouTube channel, I never anticipated generating any advertising revenue. But coincidentally, I do now, which is awesome. And so what I've decided to do is donate this to an organization that is very close to my heart called Zero Ceiling. Their mission is to end youth homelessness. The way they do this is by providing young people experiencing homelessness with supportive housing, employment, professional support, life skills, and outdoor adventure. Because often young people in urban centers with no resources will never get the opportunity to experience wild places, nature that can be so transformational, and absolutely was for me. Third, if you prefer to listen to my content, you can now find us wherever you listen to podcasts. Just search for The Jay Martin Show.